All right, cool. So, Ali Thatcher. I'm a independent designer based in Mass. I don't really claim Boston just because I'm
Hmm.
not. I'm not from the city. I'm from the country. But yeah, I run an independent design practice called Fallen Cargo, which is all about preserving Black culture and combating whitewashing. And so that's just the foundation of the work that I do. So yeah.
It's amazing. Um, so we like to start our interviews with the first question. Are you hood grown? And if so, how does that influence your aesthetic?
To be honest, I don't know, because
Yeah, go.
like I was
We
telling
can
you
talk
before,
it
like
through. We can figure it out how we're going to answer this together.
yeah, because I moved around a lot as a kid.
Hmm.
My brother and sister, they were born in Providence, Rhode Island, and then they lived there for a little bit, and then my family moved to Syracuse, and that's where I was born, like Syracuse, New York, upstate.
Hmm.
And then was there for a little bit, like shortly after I was born, we moved to Hartford, Connecticut, lived there for 5 years.
Hmm.
And then in 2000, we just moved to Carver, Mass, which is like where my dad's originally from. And so like I still live out there. Like
Hmm.
I've grown up there for most of my life, so it's very country.
Is it like that's Western Mass?
No, it's like
I don't know, Carver. I've never even
do
heard.
you know where like Plymouth is?
Yeah. Okay.
Like
Yeah.
South Shore, like
Hmm.
we're like the next town over. So it's like not quite
Okay.
South Shore. It's not quite Cape Cod. It's just in this weird like farm area. And so
Interesting.
yeah, and
So, how is living in those types of areas influence the type of work you're making?
oh man, I don't know. I would say like it's all about like access to culture, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because when I was growing up in Hartford, like where I lived in a suburb called Windsor, Connecticut, and it's like I grew up in a neighborhood where it was just like a lot of Black and brown people, a lot of people of all different like financial statuses,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So I was around like a multifaceted group of Black people. I went to like a school where it was predominantly Black. There was Puerto Rican kids in our neighborhood, like Jewish kids in our neighborhood, and then to go from like Carver and be the only Black girl, you know. And it was a different experience for my two older siblings too, because you know they're experiencing as they're older. So it was like I went from going down the street just to go get beef patties to having to drive like 40 minutes to Roxbury to go to Ollie's Roti. You know what I mean? Or like I'd have to go 35 minutes to Brockton to go get her hair done when that used to be like a 10-minute drive down the street.
Right.
And so a lot of my like aesthetic and inspiration just came from like what I was consuming in terms of like Black culture. Like I grew up on Vibe magazine and the Source
Mm-hmm.
magazine. I spent a lot of time on the internet, like the blog era when there was like Concrete Loop
Mm-hmm.
and wrapup.com, which still exists, but like Concrete Loop doesn't exist.
Yeah, no, none of those. Like, I used to be on like Dat Puff all the time. I was like,
Yeah,
yo, let me
yeah.
download the latest mix.
Yeah, like what is it? There's Dat Piff and like I remember it, like when Two Dope Boys really started, like I was
Mm-hmm.
on it like that. Um, I was a huge like Pharrell fan. Like he was like my role model because it was
Mm-hmm.
like here's this Black dude that has this eclectic style, but is also very well respected in the Black community. And like for
Mm-hmm.
me, I just always felt like, yeah, I'm the only Black girl, and yeah, I play basketball and I run track, but I'm also like taking art classes outside of school.
Mm-hmm.
I'm taking sewing classes. I just kind of just had my own thing, and I feel like all of that has inspired like my aesthetic and how I carry myself, the art that I make. So
Dope.
yeah,
Amazing. See, we came up with a beautiful answer. What? That was
yeah,
great. I just had to keep pulling little questions out to get it. See, that was great.
yeah.
Before we get like really deep into like your art making and your process, I just want to like do like a quick check-in. Like right now,
Mm-hmm.
I've been trying to ask all like my Black artists that I've been interviewing, like, how are you coping? How are you caring for yourself right now? Like, how are you doing? Just like a mental check, physical check, like emotional check. It's just, I think it's
Yeah,
important to do that for fellow artists to check in on each other.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
how are you?
I've been like, I'm like today I'm doing pretty good. Like I would say in the last few weeks I've been doing pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like yesterday there was like this overwhelming feeling of like, I don't know, I feel like Black women have this like unspoken connection with each other. Like it's like this unspoken sistering.
Mm-hmm.
And so like you can kind of tell when your homegirl's not in a good place, even like without like any social media. Like you could just tell. And I remember one of my homegirls, like Monica, like just texted me and sent me this article on it was a GQ article on Michaela Cole, and I was just like, that's what I needed, like in that moment.
Yeah.
You know, so just taking it as it comes. I've been listening to a lot of Karangbin, which
of who?
Karangbin. It's this band out of Houston, and they just make this like eclectic music for all types of moods. So I spend a lot of time just like outside listening to them, bird watching with my mom. You know, you kind of have to pay attention from a distance because it's like there is a lot of stuff going on. And then two, with being a Black owned business, it's like your business is growing as there's turmoil happening, and you have to figure out how to process that as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm shipping out packages every single week. It was never like this before.
And it's great that you're getting all this business. But...
Right. And so you have to kind of, and two, like every year my business goes through a growth spurt, and it always makes me uncomfortable. And I kind of just learning how to embrace the ebbs and flow of it and take it as it comes. So we've been doing pretty well, just staying balanced. That's all.
Good to hear. All right, let's get into art talk. So what got you interested in digital design and visual language? I know from looking at your resume that you studied communication, visual communication, where I was, when I went to school, I had a couple of roommates that were visual communication majors. So like, I know the long hours of them just like constantly on their laptops, just like moving around on InDesign and like figuring out Photoshop. And I'm over here trying to build a sculpture on the other side of the room. And I'm like, what's going on? So, like, tell
it's
me
like
about
two
it.
different worlds.
Yeah.
So I actually got into design very early on. Like I think I was like 12, 13.
Oh, dope.
And it all just came from like I was talking about, like the blog era.
Yeah.
And like being on the internet. I was also a huge Ashanti fan at the time. I still am. Like people try to shit on her, but like, come on, like
I love Ashanti, and I fucking love her kissing cousin Ja Rule. Like I don't give a fuck. I love both of them.
Yeah, and so like for me, like being the only Black girl in school, like I would kind of like supplement that like access to my culture through the internet and through like being on her like fan page and connecting with her fans. And like that's how I learned about Photoshop, because all of her fans would make like fan art and graphics and avatars, and I was like, I want to learn how to do that. And so I would be in high school in art class, like on the Mac lab, trying to figure out how to do it. And then my dad got me he got me this refurbished like iMac from 2000. This was like 08, 09, and so it was way obsolete, but it worked. And he got me a bootleg copy of Photoshop so I could learn on my own. And from there I was just like, yeah, I'm just gonna do this. And also being into streetwear was like, I was already in high school like customizing my own sneakers and creating my own t-shirts, and I would sell paintings for like $10 in the hallways, and like people didn't really like, they didn't like
hustle on early. Got the
hustle.
I
don't know if like the people that I went to school really understood what I was trying to do or like what I was really about, but I always just like stayed true to like, I'm gonna be a designer. Like I'm gonna like make falling cargo a thing, because I came up with that when I was like 16, 17, and so
dope. Yeah, I have questions.
So, yeah,
we'll get into like really your brand in a second. Can you tell me a little bit about your relationship to typeface and fonts? Because I've noticed the work you play with fonts so much, and like as someone who loves to draw and like make up their own fonts, like I'm always very interested in how people choose their fonts. Like what's your relationship to them? Like how do you choose them? And even how do you design your own? You have a couple typefaces that you design yourself. How do you come up with these, and what are you drawn to?
Well, it's interesting because like being a graphic designer and being a type designer are like very different things. I could never consider myself a type designer because it's such a like a niche thing. But it's such a huge part of the field, and knowing what typeface to use, and also understanding the anatomy of a typeface and letter forms and stuff. So I feel like I didn't start growing, I was always into graffiti, like as a kid, but I didn't start really learning about type until obviously college, you know, and taking these rigorous design courses where you have to do type spacing by hand. Um, and so, I don't know, it's just like another art form, another medium to communicate your message, your ideas. But yeah, like that's kind of it. And there are times where like I never necessarily design a typeface with the intentions of using it. Sometimes working on a logo and I don't like the fonts that I have. You know, I'd be trying to steal fonts from other companies,
Yeah.
but because it's like, it's expensive. Like typefaces are expensive. You might pay like $60. And if you really like it, you'll pay for it. But it's just like, I don't like the fonts that I have. I can't really pay for fonts right now. So I'm just going to make one. And that's just how it happens.
That's dope. I mean, like, I've always thought about like how interesting it is to design typeface, because being a printmaker, I've like laid out a lot of like letterpresses, and like that's just like finding these like already made letters, and you have to just go, all right, I guess this is the best font for me, or what am I going to do, sit here and carve out a new freaking font? Like,
and
no.
that's real letting. Like that's what real kerning and real letting is. And now we have like computers to do all that stuff for us, but how you really learn about it.
Yeah, but I'm always very interested in how the digital realm is like, you know, attacking typeface now. So how would you describe your color palette? I've seen a lot of, like, looking at a lot of your t-shirt work and your sticker work and your poster work. You do utilize black and white a lot. However, when you do use color, it's fairly on the vibrant side. And I'm seeing a lot of warm colors when I look at your work. But I'm going to stop using adjectives to describe your color palette so you can do it for yourself. How would you describe your color palette?
Oh, man. So, like, early on, like, before I was starting the brand, I like, love vibrant, juicy colors. Like, I can balance between like doing the very like minimalist black and white and then just orange. You know, I love orange. If I could date orange, I would. Like if I could date a color, I would date the color orange.
I thought it would be orange. I noticed how your love of orange.
Or anything that goes well with my complexion. Like that's why I'm wearing a yellow shirt today. You know what I mean?
Girl, I feel you.
But I love like robust, juicy colors, or just like juicy design where it's like I want to sink my teeth into it, and I can design that way if I want to, but then I also like the quietness of just black and white, you know, and then just that like one pop of color.
Yeah, it's really well done. I really love your colors. So I was looking at your resume again because I try to do like, you know, a weird way of like looking at your information without being too creepy about it, but
it's like be creepy but be professional.
Yeah, I'm like, you know, you have that information out there, so I'm going to use it. So I looked at your resume and I noticed that you have some experience working with Hasbro and a couple other companies, but Hasbro stood out to me, being Play-Doh and My Little Pony. What was it like working and designing for a brand that we like grew up with, that you saw when you were like walking through Toys R Us as a kid, and then you were like, I'm gonna design some packages for them now?
Designing toys is hard and stressful.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
It really is. Like, so I've been kind of freelancing there on and off, so I like just do like their temping, so I can get a contract from like 6 months to a year.
Oh, dope.
And so like I'll just bounce between like doing my own thing, and then sometimes when I feel like, oh, I want a little bit of stability, I'll just pop in there. And my first year there was fantastic. It was fantastic because I got to work on so many different things. Like I thought I was just going there just to be a package designer and just set artwork on die lines. Like that's all I thought I was gonna do. And then I was like, I got to do character art. I got to do like user experience. I got to do branding. I got to do so many different things. I got to understand marketing strategy. What else? Like, there was just an abundance of things that I learned. Even just like how to conduct yourself in the meeting. How do you get heard in a meeting? Like that was one of the biggest challenges starting out in that place, because it's like, not only is it like, are you young, you're one of the few Black people there, you know, and it was to the point where it was just like, I'm even seeing like white dudes get mansplained and like be silenced because they're younger designers. So it's one of those places where you're surrounded by so many people, so of like different fields. So you're working with engineers, you're working with legal people, you're working with marketing people, you're working with people who do translations, and, you know, just figuring all that stuff out and all the moving pieces to develop a product and execute it and put it on shelf. Like, there's so many moving parts to it, but it is and as much as like the corporate experience can be exhausting and draining, especially as a minority, it's like, you know what, I'm going to just like take all of these tools and things that I'm learning here and apply it to what I'm doing. You know, like, I've had the experience of having a seat at the table, but it's just like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but it's exhausting. And so I'm like, I'm gonna just spend that energy and
you just pack up your takeout plate and, you know,
yeah,
go out, take your
exactly.
takeout of all the information you already have your Tupperware with you.
You gotta like infiltrate.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are so many incredibly talented people that work at that company. Like, that was probably the first place that I worked at where I realized, like, oh, like, these aren't just designers that are kind of settled into just being a designer and getting their check and are exhausted by the rat race. Like, these are people who have businesses outside of their job. These are people who are super passionate about toys, and the culture of toys. These are all people who have just like their own thing, who are artists. And so I've met so many incredibly talented people at that company.
That's dope. That's good that you didn't have a terrible, like, I would, like, the worst thing that could happen is going into a company or a brand that you grew up with and being like, oh my God, it's completely corrupt. Like, you know, you like,
you know, and it's like, it probably is, but I think it's all about it's all about
you're seeing the good sides of it. I'm glad
it's
you had
all
a good
about
experience.
figuring out like how much you need to invest yourself into it. Like, like my first year, I was deeply invested in trying to get a full-time job there, and then that didn't happen. And so I was like, okay, like, let me readjust. I was like, okay, if that's not going to be the case, whatever, you know, it is what it is. There's always going to be an opportunity. But and then my second year going back, I was like, okay, now I can, you know, it's like when you like you catch feelings for somebody that you're just having a casual situation with, and then it's just like, then they hurt your feelings.
And you're like, you know what? I didn't set up for this. This is not what I came in here for.
It's like, but it's like, okay, I see you now. I see where it is. It's like, I'll work with you, but I'm also going to have my own thing. So like my second year, I went there with that energy of like, okay, I'm just here to like get my check, get out, learn as much as possible, not get too invested, and just make great work and continue to meet more awesome people. And then I did my third contract. I finished that up in February. And it was the same thing. It was like business as usual. You come in, you do your job. And I just approach it with like, I'm a resource. Use me as a resource. And, you know, that's how we do it over there.
Dope. So going from a brand you work for, and now let's talk about your own brands, because like you said, all the folks over at that brands are all working on second projects, but you got like your main focus, and you know, Hasbro is your side bitch. That's how we see it, you know? But tell me about your brand Fallen Cargo. Tell me about how you play homage to the phrase, it fell off the truck, because I love that phrase. I live by that. And how does this concept inform your design practice?
Yeah. So I started developing when I was like 16, 17. That's when I came up with the name for it. Like even prior to that, I was like doing like clothing design in Microsoft Paint. But then it's like, once I got the Photoshop, I leveled up and I was like, okay, it's time to rebrand, time to get serious about a name. And I chose Fallen Cargo because I love that phrase, like it fell off the truck. You know, it's just like that euphemism for purchasing stolen goods. It's something that is so tied to streetwear in our culture, you know, and not necessarily it's not supposed to be like in a bad way or to shame our culture for purchasing stolen goods. That's just how it is. Like everybody bootlegs, right?
Mm-hmm. We
But
live on
then,
the land that was bootleg, so
yeah,
let's be
yeah,
real. We can do
yeah.
it.
Like everybody had the VCR DVD that was like fell off a
Mm-hmm.
truck at Walmart, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, and at that time, I was, I remember going to Bodega for the first time when I was 17, or like my brother taking me to Johnny Cupcakes. Obey Propaganda was like popping off at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember going to ICA with a friend from high school and seeing Shepard Fairey's prints. And I was like, there was something about those brands that I gravitated towards because they had a very clear intention and then they had a community. And I had always wanted Fallen Cargo to be that. But it took me a while to, like 16 and 17, I don't know shit about business. I'm just like learning Photoshop. I don't even know anything about design. So that's what kind of like led me to go to art school and just like get the degree, learn as much as possible. And then about 3 years out of school, that's when I kind of like I put it on the back burner, and two, I think with trying to start Fallen Cargo at that time when I was in high school, like I wasn't around too many people that could get it or that could understand what I was doing.
Mm.
And a lot of creative people do not associate themselves with being business people. Like we just avoid numbers. And so I didn't even believe that I could do it myself at that time. And so I went to school, just learned as much as possible. 3 years after, like I was freelancing right out of college. And so I was already technically working for myself, technically running a business, and I kind of just got to this point where I was like, you know what, like I need to have my own thing on the side that like I need to have another stream of income. Like even if I can't do client work all the time, like maybe I can just go make these t-shirts. But it was like, I didn't want to just make t-shirts. You know what I mean? I wanted to make something that was bigger than streetwear. Also, like I'm into streetwear, but I'm also a minimalist. Like I hate the whole like hype beast. I shouldn't say I hate the hype beast shit, but
Okay,
it's
you can say that.
but it was just like I knew that that's not what I wanted to dip into. Like I wanted to create something that was more unapologetic, more closer to Black people, Black womanhood in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, I was also just like developing a lot of artwork outside of that. And also like going through your own journey of consciousness and becoming aware and learning and unlearning. And at that time, like after college, you start becoming more and more aware of like, yo, we've been lied to this whole time.
Yeah.
So I just started creating work around that, and that evolved into like, what if I infuse this into a streetwear brand? Like, what if I make this an apparel brand? And then also with having my experience at Hasbro and not seeing people who look like me in the design space, I was like, how can I empower more Black people to take full ownership of their idea and their creativity? How can I also like just show representation of Black people being creative directors, being in leadership positions in design? And so I just decided like, I'm going to throw all of this energy, all of these things that I'm learning into Fallen Cargo. And then probably like the summer of 2016, like I just had the ball rolling. Like I was just like, I'm opening up I'm getting a DBA, I'm getting a business account, and like, we're just going to make this happen.
Dope. Amazing. I really, really fell in love with so many of your designs. They're, like just aesthetically beautiful, but also conceptually like so sound. And like I studied sociology and fine arts in college, and like everything just like spoke to me so much. As a sociologist, I was like, yes. And like as a Black sociologist, I was like, ah, this is too good.
Right.
And you
and then,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Another thing I would say too is like, there was a time where like the only thing that we were seeing as far as like Blackness and streetwear was like melanin pop-in shirts. And it was like, that's great. Like it has its space, but I was like, I really want to see something that's really well designed and really well thought out. That isn't just like a one-off thing.
I know, because like, what about us light skins? I felt really weird talking about how my melanin was popping when it's not really that popping in comparison. Like let me embrace other parts of my Blackness other than come on, there's other ways. So how do you express your activism through your designs? How do your color schemes and compositions connect to your messages? Those are like really big questions, but feel free to direct it at one design or think about it, you know, as a collective of designs.
I don't know. I just feel like I'm just a Black woman that sees shit for what it is. So like, I do not consider myself an activist in any way. I feel like we should be of service to those who are activists. Like, for example, like the work that I do with Mass Recreational Consumer Council, like they're the people who are really out there like marching and organizing and lobbying, and like they're the ones that are in, you know, the city hall and like sending letters to the mayor. And it's just like, I'm just here to provide the resources and tools so that we can all like have a place. You know what I mean? And then I think
love that
too,
you connect with them.
and I think as like with like t-shirts, like they kind of validate something for us. Like, I'm not saying anything different that hasn't already been said. Like, we've always been saying that, like the Kardashians, like we've always been saying that they're like the KK Kardashians. Like, we've always been saying that. We've always been talking about how they exploit Black culture. But like, I'm able to like take it and put it in a certain framework that really like hits home. And sometimes as Black people, we can be afraid of like putting our message out there just out of fear. And it was just like, how can I just like say what we're saying, validate it, project it out there so that we can all be like, ah, oh, I'm glad somebody said it. I'm glad this exists. I'm glad that, you know, somebody said this message.
Oh, so that's definitely the feeling you get when I look at every single one of your designs, and I'm like, oh, I'm about to have a whole like trough full of Fallen Cargo t-shirts. Like, I'm waiting on my sticker pack to come, and I was like, so I was like, I don't know what next. I don't know what t-shirt I'm gonna buy, but I know I want these stickers, so I'm gonna buy this right now. So I'm waiting on those, and I will be excited when they come.
Hopefully it comes this week. If they don't, just let me know, text me or whatever.
It's fine. I can wait. I'll be patient. But what's next for you and your work? What do you have going on? Anything, new designs, new thinkings, any projects?
What is it? I'm dropping a shirt either next week or in the next couple weeks.
Oh, dope. I'm excited.
I'm just gonna like put it out when I feel like it. I've gotten to that space where I just put shit out when I feel like it, instead
like Beyonce. Just drop it at 11 p.m. and be like, hit it, y'all. Figure it out. If you see it, you saw it.
And I wasn't even gonna put out a shirt, but I was like, I found something that I'm gonna like, that I feel like is right on time. And it's for us. It's not for anybody else, but everything that I do is for us. Right?
Yeah.
Beautiful. And then I'm planning on doing a show, I think July 9th in Providence at AS 220.
Nice.
I think like Shaka's in it.
Oh, dope.
My friend Norlin, my friend Carlos De La Rosa, and OJ Slaughter. And I think you got to go by appointment at AS 220 in downtown Providence.
Dope. Send me the flyer for that. We'll definitely let everyone know.
Yeah. When all that stuff comes, when I get all that stuff, I'll let you know. And I think I'll be showing like the White Lies project.
Oh, nice. That's exciting. I love that piece.
And like maybe like another piece. And that's about it. Like, I don't know. I'm just taking it as they come. I'm trying to get in my like conceptual art bag right now. Like, I've been now is the time that like I can now work on all of these like pieces that I just have on like scrap pieces of paper and like putting all these things together. But that's about it for right now.
That's amazing. Can you tell everyone where they can find your work on Instagram, websites, all that stuff? We'll have it all in the show notes for people as well.
Yeah. I'm on Instagram at Fallen Cargo, FALLEN Cargo. And then fallencargo.com. Those are the only two places that I engage with. Else. I don't be on Twitter like that because it's crazy over there.
But we'll find your Behance too with all your extended portfolio.
Search Allie Thatcher at behance.net.
Dope. Thank you so much for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. All right.
Thank
you for reaching out.
Of course. Thank you.